Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Hey, it's Tina Dietz. How's everyone out there today? You know what? I've got a really bad case of eudaimonia today. What is eudaimonia? Well, you know how hedonism is kind of happiness for the sake of personal satisfaction. We think of hedonists as people who just are pleasure seekers. Well, I'm a big fan of pleasure. I need pleasure in my work. I need pleasure in my life. Otherwise, I start to really kind of wilt and feel empty. It's something I've had to learn about myself. We had a little conversation about this on Facebook just the other week, the importance of pleasure in your work and how we tend to self-deny ourselves around this. Well, I learned the term eudaimonia, and eudaimonia it was coined by Aristotle, I believe, and it's all about human flourishing. It is creating happiness that benefits all. And I love this idea and I love this word. And why it's relevant to our show here today is because I learned this word from my very good friend and colleague, Teresa de Grosbois. And Teresa, I can honestly say, is somebody who, when I met her and in the years that I've known her, has changed my life significantly. Teresa is the founder and the chair of the Evolutionary Business Council, which is a group of thought leaders from all over the world who's dedicated to not only leaving the world a better place, but helping each other do just that, create a wonderful world of transformation, of integrity, of excellence. And we help each other do that. And that organization with Teresa at the helm has made an incredible difference in my life, in my career, in my network. And Teresa's here on the show today to talk about how to become an influential person. She is a very deep expert on this topic, and we're going to be talking about her book. We're going to be talking about some techniques, some common mistakes that people make in developing their influence. This is one of my favorite interviews, and Teresa's one of my favorite guests. And today, instead of discussing one of our other wonderful sponsors of the show, like Audible or Cashflow Podcasting, I wanted to share a little bit about the Costa Rica experience that myself and other members of the Evolutionary Business Council have been creating. Now, for those of you who don't know, about going on 4 years ago now, we sold our house, we sold our stuff, we took our family and we moved to Costa Rica. Had never even been there, even though I actually knew some people down there, so wasn't totally blind. We moved down to Costa Rica, and that was an incredible experience to live and work in a place where the pace of life is completely different, where the climate is completely different, where you don't even speak the first language of the country. I adore Costa Rica. And in the process of living there, it turned out that Teresa and some other people from the Evolutionary Business Council had this idea. What if we created a community where we chose our own neighbors, a community of thought leaders, of authors, teachers, people who were inclined to want to leave the world a better place than we found it? What if we had a community like that? And so that's what we created. You can check the whole deal out at vistamundo.info. That's VISTAMUNDO.info. And there's videos, there's photos. This is an incredible community in the mountains of the Central Valley of Costa Rica. We've just gotten started putting this community together, and in the next several years, going to develop into a community center, into people living there year-round, people coming down part of the time. We've been working with the local community to become fully integrated and understand their needs and be responsive to that. It's just been an incredible journey. So if you are somebody who wants to live in community, who is interested in living in somewhere like Costa Rica or in living there part of the time at least, go to vistamundo.info and check out the community that we're developing. It is a very creative, earthy, wonderful, amazing project, and I'm very excited about it. I never thought I would be developing a piece of property in the mountains of Costa Rica with this amazing view of the ocean at the same time. You never know where life's going to take you. We truly don't. And I've been absolutely blessed to have this experience. And I have that a lot of that to owe to our guest today, Teresa de Grosbois. So we're going to get over to her right now for a phenomenal interview. Enjoy. Greetings, Superstarters, and welcome to the Backstage Pass. Today we have brought back Teresa de Grosbois from the Wildfire Academy, who is an influence expert, and I'm really excited to have her back here to dive deep into how to become an influential person and how not to make the mistakes that people often make on that path to becoming influential. We're also going to talk about why it's so important to become an expert and an authority in your field, how that translates to all kinds of abundance for your business and in building your tribe. So, Teresa, thanks for being back with us.
Oh, my pleasure. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. I love this topic. So I want to dive right in. What is the one thing, let's just get right to it, what is one thing that people who achieve enormous influence and success know that others don't?
Oh, influential people are masters at relationships. And what influencers really get is that the more they build relationship with other influencers, the more they gain that level of influence themselves. So if you watch influential people, they're always looking to meet other influencers.
So it's really all about being willing to build the relationships, which isn't an instant thing, is it?
No. And, a big principle, and this is a term Shonda Perrin coined, it's that influencers tend to be really, really great at building cycles of reciprocity with each other. And a cycle of reciprocity is just the natural give and take that happens naturally in a relationship. It's like when two friends generally support each other. One might bring the other chicken soup if they're sick. The other might bring in the mail if you're out of town. Cycles of reciprocity aren't about scorekeeping. It's about really having each other's back. And when you watch influencers, they become exquisite at building these kinds of relationships with each other.
Brilliant. So let's talk about some habits. You talk about habits that people who are consistently good at generating influence, those habits that they exhibit. Can you share a couple of those with us?
Well, I think first and foremost, one of the biggest habits of the highly influential is authenticity. And, there's a lot of different definitions of authenticity out there. Everybody's talking about authenticity. Here's my definition. Your inside voice is saying the same thing as your outside voice. And when we talk about moving into a more courageous game, the influence game, a lot of people have a lot of mental dialogue come up, right? Inner conversation around, I'm not worthy, I don't have enough credentials. Mine is, I'm too small to play with big kids because I'm the youngest of 9 kids. Right? We're human beings. We've all got an inner conversation that's going to stop us from seeking out positions of power and influence, unless, of course, you're a sociopath, in which case you're hardwired to seek out power and influence.
There you go.
And we don't want to have a world run by sociopaths, do we? So we've got to learn to master that inner dialogue so that, when we're talking to a group, when we're dealing with people in a one-to-many scenario, we don't have an inside voice that's saying, oh my God, they're not going to listen to me. Oh my God, what am I doing here? Is there spinach in my teeth? Whatever. While we're outwardly trying to say, I can really help you. Let me work on you with that. Because, there's a technical term in the industry I like to use. When your inside voice isn't matching what your outside voice is saying, you're going to land smarmy. So you really got to be careful that you're always in alignment there. Yes.
Before we move on to the second habit, define smarmy for our audience, because I love that word.
Smarmy. It's like the feeling you get when someone's trying to sell you a vacuum cleaner and they're telling you the vacuum's really good when you know they just want to make a sale. That's smarmy.
Smarmy. That's brilliant. All right. What's the second habit?
So the second habit, and this one is obvious, and yet, you wouldn't believe how many people miss this one, right? Influential people deal in a one-to-many scenario. So if you're out there and you're trading your hours for dollars, your ability to influence is only one person at a time. And there's something that happens when we deal in a one-to-many scenario. When people see us teaching a group, there's a social proof that what we're saying makes sense. And as human beings, we're hardwired to want social proof that this person is wise and this person is worth listening to. So the bigger the group we see listening to that person, the more likely you are to get out of your own way and pay attention to what they're saying. So influencers know that the bigger the audience they seek out, the easier it will be for them to help other people because the social proof becomes massive at that point. So influencers tend to predominantly deal in a one-to-many scenario, and they will rigorously guard their time against dealing in the one-on-one.
Okay, so guarding your time and focusing on developing a one-to-many conversation and developing authenticity as a habit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Matching the congruency between the internal and the external.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned in the main part of the show, the public show, that, you have to decide what you focus on and being really specific.
Yeah.
How do you find that giant thing that's of great value to other people?
Well, it's usually some magic combination of what you're really, really good at and what are some of the biggest challenges you've ever overcome in your lifetime. So if what you're really good at is, for example, health, and you've got a lot of background in health, and you've specifically lived through recovering from spinal injury, then there's a great combination because you can personally talk about what it was like to recover from spinal injury in the context of teaching people about health and pain management. Or if you're someone who's a money expert and you've personally lived through what it was like to have a business fail, there's a great combination. You can focus on how to start up the second business and not carry the past forward. There's a great branding because you know what that's like to have fear of failure in your way when you suffered through a major business loss, right? So you always want to look for something that's deeply meaningful to you because that's where you'll be most authentic, right? So if you're not doing something that you love, and you're not really lit up about helping people in that area, then you've got an inner dialogue that's different than your outer dialogue. Your inner voice is saying, I'm doing this to make money, and your outer voice is saying, I'm doing this to help you. And so you've got to find that thing that you're really passionate about and that you're really good at. And when you can find that combination, there's not only the ability to have high influence, but it's also the place where you'll make the most money.
Brilliant. Now let's talk about adding on, finding that value in combination with now developing that one-to-many conversation. You and I both work with entrepreneurs, and we tend to find that maybe when they come to us, their vision actually might be a little small for serving them. Would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of us have this mental paradigm, and so I'm speaking to you listeners who know this is you, okay, that you think bigger is harder. And bigger is not harder. Bigger just takes more courage. Because the reality is, go bigger is a great expression in business, because if you're just doing something little that nobody really cares about and you're dabbling in it in a very one-on-one kind of way, you're not really solving a big problem for anyone. And therefore, a lot of people aren't going to come to you. It's that simple. The bigger the solution you solve, the bigger the problem you solve, rather, the more profit you'll make, the more influence you'll have. So playing bigger is actually far more downstream. It's far simpler. It's far more profitable.
See, that's a gorgeous connection. I love that. And I think we're going to have to quote you on that bigger isn't harder. Bigger just takes more courage.
Yeah.
I love that. Put that on a T-shirt, please. Yeah. Now let's go around to some of the biggest mistakes that you've either made, because you've mentioned that you've made these mistakes too in the book that you're writing about influence and the habits of highly influential people. That you've made all the mistakes that you list out in the book. But what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've either made or that you see people making when they're trying to become influential? Well,
the number one mistake I see in my students, and anyone for this matter, is what I would affectionately call the premature ask. Everybody says, well, premature what? But, they're out there and they're trying to build relationships with influential people. And, I can almost see the moment where all the sales training or networking training they've had kick in, and it's like they're in a big room and there's 200 people in the room and there's a speaker on stage and I can see the light bulb go off. I got to run up there and meet the speaker because they could really help me if they endorse me. And they've, you've got all this don't ask, don't get, maybe you've seen the movie, always be closing, right?
Yes, exactly.
And people rush the speaker or they rush the influential person in the room. And it's like the equivalent of you've just moved into a new house and the neighbor rushes over and says, oh my God, I love that lawnmower. I can't wait to borrow that, baby. You know, and you're rolling your eyes back in your head, you know, and it's like, oh, who did I move in next to, right? And influential people experience this nonstop. People running up to them and saying, hey, would you mention my store on your show? Would you endorse me? Would you endorse my book? Would you introduce me to that other influential person? And the reality is you're basically proving to them that you don't get the rules of etiquette, that you don't get the rules of the influence game. Why would they ever introduce you to someone else or endorse you when you're basically demonstrating in that moment that you don't know how to play the game? You're essentially presenting yourself as an idiot who's just stepped on the hockey rink and fallen on your butt, right? So you really want to make sure that you relax when you meet someone influential. There's nothing to hurry up and do. All you got to do is build a relationship, which brings me to the next biggest habit. You want to know what the next habit is?
Please.
Influencers use influence as the currency of building relationships. And let me tell you what that means.
Yep.
You know, a lot of people
I'm all ears.
I can hear your listeners. They're going, what? But the way influencers build a relationship with each other is they gift influence to each other. In other words, the same way you want to get respect, you got to give respect. You want to get influence, you got to give influence. So when you want to build relationship with an influencer, you don't rush up there and say, can you endorse me? Can you connect me? Can you do all these things for me? You run up there and say, I love everything you teach. I heard you mention that you're going to be in Chicago next week, and I know some people in Chicago. Can I connect you with them so they could shout out your event? Or let me shout out your event in Chicago. Or I know this other influential person in the same realm you teach. I think you can help each other a lot. They've got a magazine. Maybe they do an article on you. Can I introduce you to them? You're giving influence to that influential person. That's the equivalent of when you meet the new neighbor, you don't go over and ask to borrow the lawnmower. You take them a pie or a lasagna or whatever it is that you do when you meet the new neighbor, right? So you find some way of drawing attention to them, drawing attention to their work, or connecting them with people who would, and you give that to them. Now you've just kickstarted a relationship. And I can guarantee you, you'll be one of the few people in the lineup trying to meet them that has done that. Everybody else will be asking for something. You'll be the one person that stands out that they remember. You'll be the one card they take home and they write on the back of, make sure you connect with this person.
Beautiful. Yeah, I remember being part of a mastermind of colleagues, and we were in the midst of this conversation, and some of them who specialize, like yourself, in helping people publish books and become influential, they all posted photos of the stack of books that people had sent them, asking them to please read my book and endorse it.
Yeah.
And some of these stacks were from as tall as they were.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that, people don't want to help. They do want to help, but who has time for all of that?
Yeah, I get probably 9 books a month sent to me.
I figured you did. Yeah,
from people
exactly.
Want to read the book, and every book takes 2-3 hours to read, so that's like a week's worth of time if I was to read all those books, right? So, the reality is I do read some of them. I read the ones of the people I'm in deep relationship with and I dearly love. Those are the books that get read.
Exactly, because they've taken the time and you've taken the time to build a relationship. Business relationships are no different than any other kind of relationship.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Tina Dietz, you can send me a book any day of the week, and I will not only read it, I will shout it from the rooftops because I love everything you do, and I love what you teach, right?
Thank you, my love. I really appreciate that. And, now that you've said that, of course, that plants a seed. And now I start thinking about what book I'm going to write.
Yeah, you got to get a book out there, hon.
Yeah. Now, I want to, your next book is coming out this fall. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
Give us some highlights of that book, because I'm really excited about this. This topic does not get talked about enough.
Well, it's called Mass Influence, The Habits of the Highly Influential. And it's basically a recipe book. It focuses on the 10 key habits of influential people and the most common mistakes people make when they're first moving into that realm around those habits. So it's basically a how-to book that walks you through how do you move from being someone who's just influential on a one-to-one level to being influential on a far vaster level.
That's so great. Who was we talking to that was comparing it to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly
I know.
Successful
Joel Comm just gave me the most wonderful endorsement. It's so lovely when a multiple New York Times #1 best-selling author says things like that about your book.
And that's a function of, you know, that you are writing about the right topic when someone like Joel gives you that endorsement.
I know. John DiMartini just gave me the nicest endorsement yesterday, too, so I'm pretty excited. I'm tickled-pink. Yeah.
He's wonderful. I was one of my interview with John. I completely forgot to transition between the show and the backstage pass because I was just so mesmerized. We just talked for an hour.
I can believe you. Yeah, he's just so incredible to interview John DiMartini. He's grown so many leaders in this industry.
Yeah, it's a vast amount of knowledge. Well, let's now go back to this body of work that you have around becoming influential. I think that this is, you know, for anyone who really wants to make a difference in the world, this is a fundamental set of skills. I don't think you can go anywhere with a cause or a dream or a passion without knowing how to play the influence game. So for all of our superstarters out there who are looking to get going and fulfill their goals and dreams, what are a couple of action steps that you'd recommend that they can take even in the next week to help them start something?
Yeah. You know, I love how you phrase that because it's like a lot of people out there, it's almost like they've become superstars at a single sport. And now this is a whole different sport. So you might be an all-star athlete, but if you don't know the rules of the game and the way the players in that field speak and the way they work, you're going to end up looking foolish, right? So let's give you some takeaways. And I talked about the 30-day challenge at the beginning of the show. I want to go into that a little deeper because the main thing you want to do is get in the habit of giving influence. This is so much a giver's gain sport. And it's almost like, you know, I love using the hockey analogy because I'm a Canadian and we're all about hockey.
Of course, that's right.
But, you know, when you notice hockey's all about passing the puck, right? And nobody's going to pass you the puck if they're not confident you know how to pass the puck back and set up the plays, right? So when you come on the rink and you show the other players that you're really good at passing the puck and setting up the plays, they're going to view you as one of them, and they're going to easily pass the puck back to you without even thinking, right? So, you know, a lot of what I set up in that 30-day challenge is around learn how to pass the puck. So
let's go back over that again,
here's a really good
in case for anybody hasn't heard your other show.
Yes, make a list of the influencers that you want to connect with. So a good idea is find out who's influential around the topic that you want to be influential in and make sure your topic is specific. Because the more specific you are, the easier it is to be influential. But make a list of those influential people and then start really focusing on how do I consistently give those people influence. I've built relationship with John DiMartini and Joel Comm over years because I love what they teach. I'm so enthralled by everything they do. I've gained so many breakthroughs myself from their work that if I meet someone who publishes a big magazine or has a big radio show, one of my first thoughts is, who can I introduce these people to? And you want to bet Joel Comm and John DiMartini are on that list, as are you, Tina. I'm always sending you connections too. I love what you teach, right? So get in the habit of always thinking of those people whenever you find a piece of influence that you can pick up. So let's say you're at a networking function and you meet the speaker and they happen to mention that they've got a magazine. Make a mental note of that and say, you know, I sometimes meet some really influential people that might be great contributors to your magazine. Would you like me to connect you with them when I do? Or maybe there's somebody you already know, right? Now you've got one influential person you can start connecting as you work through your list and getting to know those people. Every time you meet someone influential, by the way, add them to your list. So as you build those relationships, you start connecting those people with each other. They're going to love you because every time you make those connections, you're gifting influence to both of them. They're going to start connecting you with people, I promise you. And you're going to find that pretty soon your list that started at 10, 12 people is going to be out in the hundreds. It happens very rapidly when you start playing this game. Yeah.
Yes. Brilliant. Okay, great. So I also want to add on to this and said you had recommended a couple of different ways, practical ways to start sharing influence. And I just wanted to go back over those again. And that was LinkedIn and Facebook. And
yeah, let me give you some real quick exercises. So for the next 30 days, you're going to gift out influence 30 times. And if you want to follow these exercises on my website, there's a 4-week program you can sign up for. So we send you an email every day and remind you what to do that day. But for the next 30 days, focus on LinkedIn and Facebook. So every day go and spend 5 hours. The first day you'll do LinkedIn, and you're going to connect and recommend people on LinkedIn. And make sure you're choosing those people that are on your list, the influencers that you want to connect with. Then you're going to go on Facebook, and you're going to shout out their work. Like, let's say one of the influencers on your list just posted a blog. Repost their blog to your blog and tag them and thank them. If you don't know what tagging is, Google it. But you want to make sure they know that you're giving them influence every time that you do it. So use techniques like that. A third one you can do is tweet their quotes, but make sure you include their Twitter handle when you're tweeting them so they see it in their Twitter feed. So let's say you were, quoting Shonda Perrin. Her Twitter handle is @ShawnTV, ShawnETV. You want to follow her work. She's awesome. And you might write a quote of hers around forgiveness, for example, but you'd put @ShawnTV in the quote. And then that way you're getting her expertise out in front of thousands of people in front of your follower. She's going to love you for that. That's a way of gifting influence to her. So do that 30 times in 30 days and see where your influence levels are at. You're going to find a lot of influence coming back to you.
Absolutely. And it doesn't necessarily matter if you don't have a huge following. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
This is one of those, it's the thought that counts kind of situation.
Absolutely. The interesting thing is the more you do it, the bigger your following is going to get.
That's very true.
So it doesn't matter where you start.
Firsthand.
Just start, lean in, and you'll find your following will grow very rapidly.
Yeah, that's very true. And Teresa, we'll make sure that your links to your 30-day challenge, the 4-week program, which is really cool, are on your both of your show pages so that everyone can participate in that 30-day challenge because it's brilliant. And in a moment of shameless plug, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? You can tweet out Teresa's show.
I would love that.
Or any of our other guests on the Start Something show.
Teresa D. So TERESADEE @TeresaD. So if you use my Twitter sign in the tweet, when you tweet out the show, we'll make sure we retweet it and thank you.
There you go. See, it all comes back
there
around.
You go.
It's cycles of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Very good. So my last question to you, my dear, what's the legacy you want to leave?
You know, I have a big, hairy, audacious goal. My goal is that transformational principles will reach 1 billion people on this planet by 2020. Because I've helped grow 1,000 thought leaders to each have reaches of 1 million. And so there's my goal. I want the world to wake up and realize that we're in the point of history where we're learning to control our own destiny, to control our own lives. And all we've got to do is learn to control our own thoughts. Fail fast, forgive fast. That's the legacy I want to leave behind.
I think we're right there with you.
Yeah.
We're right there with you. So if you want to be an influential person, make sure you connect with Teresa and grant influence to get influence. So Superstarters, you've got your action steps for the week. Go out and implement them and make the difference you know that you were born to make. Teresa, as always, I'm so happy to have you on the show, and thank you for sharing everything with us. I can't wait for the release of your new book.
Oh, it's just been my pleasure, Tina. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And remember, everyone, the links are on both of Teresa's show pages, so tweet it out, shout it out, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, it's Tina again for one more quick note specifically about Teresa's book. In the interview, we referenced that her book wasn't out yet, but that is wrong. The book has been out for a while, and it went #1 in a whole bunch of countries. And Teresa has done something really extraordinary because she is so committed to this message getting out to the world and to people becoming as influential as they can be and spreading their good work. That Kindle version of her book is still currently free. So if you go to Amazon.com or you can go to the show notes page at thestartsomething.show.com and get the link right to Amazon to her book, you can download the Kindle book for free and also get the book in hardback and paperback and, of course, in Audible. And the Audible I had the pleasure of producing myself through our publishing company here at Start Something Creative Business Solutions. So I'm just tickled pink that you're joining us here today. Remember to join us every week here at the Start Something show and have a phenomenal week.